If Donald Trump came out in support of oxygen, the Democrats would hold their breaths. And now we have definitive proof this joke is actually true. You see, Donald Trump has approved the second coronavirus emergency aid package meant to provide relief to many in this country. And now there are plans for a $1 trillion package. The White House wants to put cash money in your pocket, and so do many progressives. And now, as to the evidence of why the Democrats just oppose literally anything Trump says. As many Republicans came out in favor of a cash check stimulus, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have said no. They are rejecting it. They are criticizing it. And to the shock of the progressive left, dare I say, Donald Trump is to the left of the Democratic leadership on the issue of emergency stimulus. What reality is this? That the Democrats are coming out opposed to the relief package, supported by progressives, people like Andrew Yang and Bernie Sanders. Trump is in agreement with them, but the Democrats just have to be opposed to it. We couldn't have one day of bipartisan support, could we? And it's hilarious. You got to see the reaction from many of these progressives when they realize they now are in agreement with Trump and not the Democrats. But I'll tell you, it's actually really, really simple. You know, we say this joke about whatever Trump's for, they're against, and it's true to a certain degree. I'm being a bit facetious earlier on when I said it was, true, when it was proven. I mean, it kind of is proven. But the issue is that Trump is a populist, which means though he may be a right-wing populist, he's still going to seek relief efforts when he has to. And the people on the left, the left-wing populist, the Bernie Sanders types, are going to agree on a populist mission to make sure Americans don't suffer from this. But the Democratic establishment are ivory tower elites who just want the keys to the castle, and they're stomping their feet saying, this is good for Trump. No, that's right. Everyone basically supports this. I know not everyone does, but like most people support this. Something has to be done to help protect the economy from liberal, left-leaning billionaire types. Trump supporters are definitely in favor of it. And now you have the Bernie Sanders progressives. In fact, Bernie Sanders said that the U.S. government, that the White House should invoke, or that he would, if he was president, he would invoke the Defense Production Act. And then Trump did. And then Joe Biden said the same thing. We do have bipartisan support. But the ivory tower, keys to the castle elites are just angry. It makes Trump look good. So let's just go to, let's just go to it. Check this out from Common Dreams, a left-wing activist website. Refusal by Pelosi to consider universal cash payments in response to coronavirus pandemic maddening, say progressives. Welcome to the party, everybody. Where I'm talking about the progressives. Welcome to the club. When the Democrats obstruct for seemingly no reason. This is a total failure of Democratic Party leadership. Common Dream says, progressives erupted with frustration and anger Wednesday over days of reporting that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi would not consider cash payments for Americans. Without means testing, despite the ongoing coronavirus outbreak that has ground the U.S. economy almost to a standstill. President Donald Trump and his fellow Republicans have taken the opportunity to outflank Pelosi and House Democrats on the payments, leading to anger from the left. Quote, I truly don't know how to describe how maddening it is that Republicans and Trump officials are to the left of congressional Democratic leadership on this issue, tweeted activist Jordan Yoel. Direct cash payments would be a salve to the gaping wound left in the U.S. economy by the pandemic. We are the wealthiest nation in human history and have the lowest borrowing cost of any major government on the planet, and thus can easily afford to contain the pandemic and keep our people well provisioned simultaneously, Eric Levitz wrote Tuesday for New York Magazine. All we need is for Congress to overcome its superstitions about deficits and supply the economy with many trillions of dollars in stimulus that even many center-right economists say we need. I mean, Trump is in favor of this. I mean, as far as I can tell, there's plans. The White House is trying to get a $1 trillion. I kid you not. This is the timeline we're in. We are facing a global pandemic, economic standstill. We saw 10,000 points wiped off the Dow Jones. It is nuts. Donald Trump comes out in agreement with the progressives. Can't say life is boring, can you? As the crisis deepened, the political ground on cash payments has shifted substantially with bipartisan congressional support for the proposal. As the Washington Post reported, proposals from the White House and Pelosi both have some restrictions, though the California Democrats' plans appears more complicated. On Tuesday, Secretary Treasury Steve Mnuchin told congressional Republicans that the White House was putting together a package that would send out $250 billion in checks by the end of April, though they would be means tested to some degree, meaning wealthier families wouldn't get them. Now, looking at the actual plan, I got to criticize it a bit. They say that if you make more than $100,000 a year, you get nothing. That's my understanding so far. We'll read through the story. And if you're a married couple making $200,000 a year more, you also get nothing. I don't think that makes sense. And I hate to say it because it's not like I want to, give more money to people who are already well off. But think about this for 2 seconds. If you're someone who makes $100,000 a year and you live in New York, it's very, very different from someone who makes $100,000 a year in, rural Iowa, right? The cost of living is very, very different. So if your rent is $1,500, $2,000 a month, $1,000 ain't going to cut it. And they're going to give you nothing. Look, man, I don't want to give people who make a ton of money extra money, but you got to think about if somebody was getting someone had a 6-figure job and they had budgeted, to live in a high cost of living city because they expected to be making money and they didn't expect the economy to just shut down. I mean, they're going to need support. Otherwise, they end up homeless? I don't know what the answers are to this problem for the most part, but I can identify some of the problems with it. So look, for the most part, I'm in agreement with the progressives and the Trump people on this one. We got to do something. If that comes in the form of a stimulus package, there are some risks there. Inflation, we're borrowing from ourselves in the future, essentially. We're going to devalue our currency, but it gives us a short-term relief amidst a growing crisis. Perhaps we have no other choice. One billionaire, this guy Bill Ackman, told Trump, he's saying just shut everything down for 30 days and then have the government pay for everything for 30 days to just stop it dead in its tracks before the financial crisis slowly worsens because we're drawing this one out. Here's what they say at Common Dreams. Nancy Pelosi is officially to the right of Tom Cotton on economic support for American families. Huffington Post reporter Zach Carter tweeted on Sunday, this is a total failure of Democratic Party leadership. Seriously, it's like so bipartisan. It's absurd. Pelosi and Schumer, that's why I said over and over again, they're the keys to the castle Democrats. What they want is just to say whatever it is to be opposed to Trump. They just want the keys to get into the castle and sit around and do nothing. I do not believe them at all when they talk about anything they're proposing. It's basically, if Trump says it, it must be bad. Now maybe they don't realize that this one thing actually had support from progressives. Pelosi's Deputy Chief of Staff Drew Hamill on Twitter Tuesday emphasized that any aid must be targeted for the speaker to approve it, drawing further anger from the left. Why? Asked New York Times columnist Jamel Bowie. If we agree that the crisis is stark and immediate, and we know that precise targeting takes time and administrative effort, why make that a requirement when you can simply disperse the funds now and collect from high-income recipients later? New consensus president Saikat Chakrabarty was flabbergasted at Pelosi's resistance to payments for all Americans. This crazy obsession in Dem leadership with looking reasonable by not doing too much is about as impractical and insane as you can get in the face of a pandemic. Chakrabarty tweeted, Senator Bernie Sanders, a candidate for the 2020 presidential nomination, has proposed a $2 trillion package. Trump's just calling for $1 trillion. Bernie says he wants to up the ante, including direct payments to Americans. Journalist Walker Bragman on Wednesday noted the absurdity of Trump being closer to Sanders on relief than Democratic leadership. Trump, who bungled the early response to coronavirus, is starting to take actions resembling Bernie Sanders' proposals. Monthly checks, ramping up productions via the Defense Production Act, freezing foreclosures and evictions, said Bragman, all while Dems push things like tax rebates. Baffling. I absolutely love this. And it gets worse, man, because Schumer then comes out saying, no. This is the latest from Reuters. Democratic leader Schumer criticizes Trump's call for $1,000 checks. I can't even. I love this timeline, man. It is truly, truly glorious. U.S. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer on Wednesday warned of an economic recession as the coronavirus spreads through the country and criticized the Trump administration's latest call for issuing 1,000 checks to to Americans in response. I absolutely detest these people. The problem for me, I think, is that I'm not a socialist. I'm not super far left. And that puts me at odds with a lot of the socialists. And it also puts me at odds with the woke intersectionalists. But I think right now you can see what these people are doing. They have no interest in helping Americans. Their whole mission right now is whatever Trump does is bad, and they ignore everyone else and everything else. They have no idea what they're doing. You can't build an identity. You can't build a political party off of we don't like the orange man, because periodically you'll find the orange man is actually in agreement with progressives. But hey, let them be the odd group out of weirdos who oppose what most of the people in this country think would be a good thing to do in the immediate. Quote, the coronavirus is slowing our economy to a near standstill, and we are almost certainly anticipating a recession, Schumer said in a speech on the Senate floor. He added that expanded unemployment benefits would be a more effective way of helping workers than a $1,000 check from Washington. Check this out. Andrew Yang fan page. The Yang Gang is now, oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm just loving this so much. The Yang Gang is now in a very awkward position. Real Donald Trump is advocating for our top issue, a universal basic income stimulus, while Democratic leadership is in strong opposition. Not sure how this plays out in November. There are two hashtags, people versus Schumer and people versus Pelosi. The progressives who actually want progressive and more social policy and socialist policy are sitting there looking at Trump, who's saying, on this one, you guys are right. Let's go for it. And the Democrats are saying no. I'm a bit speechless because I'm enjoying this too much. I'll tell you what, when I saw these hashtags trending and started reading what people are saying, I was laughing for a long time. Maybe, look, I think a lot of Andrew Yang people, his base, they're rather reasonable people. I'm not bullish on UBI, I'll be honest. And what we're looking at right now is a stimulus. Now, of course, I think they're trying to piggyback off of the idea of a stimulus, calling it a UBI stimulus, and that's fair to a certain degree. This would be a kind of universal basic income. Now, I look at it more of as like an emergency insurance payment or an emergency stimulus, but they're calling it UBI because it's going to go to everyone, and some people are still working. So there's a bit of, I can be fair and say, the difference between unemployment insurance or an emergency provision would be under the assumption the people who are getting it are out of work. But this bill they're proposing would go to everyone who makes less than $100,000 or to married couples who make less than $200,000. Plus, I think they would get like $500 for every child they have. I don't think it's enough. I also know we can't necessarily break the bank, so there are limits. Maybe the guy who's making $100,000 in New York is going to be left high and dry, and that's just the way things are going to be. So check this out. This is people versus Schumer. Let's see what we got. Here's a random tweet. Reminder, the Democratic Party and its leadership, Speaker Pelosi and Schumer, are here for us until we need them. You see? They're gonna jump behind the orange man bad when you say you don't like the president. And they're gonna say, sure. But the moment you then actually say, this one time, I'm glad Trump's on board in agreement with Bernie Sanders, I think Trump's realizing, desperate times call for desperate measures. How incredible is that? That Donald Trump has actually kind of stepped back on this one. And I'm not going to say he's not, being the president. But for a while, Trump has always been the person who stands in front, says, this is what it is. This is what I want. Now we're seeing someone who's starting to take more advice from the experts around him, deferring questions to other experts, to Dr. Fauci, to Mike Pence. And now people are starting to praise him. As I noted the past couple of days, MSNBC and CNN saying this is the kind of leadership the American people are looking for right now. And he's taking cues, at least to a certain degree, from Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders wants to go a little bit further. Who can you really rely on? Maybe people will start to see that for all of the faults of the president, he's not an evil, Cheeto dictator. He's not going around just trying to burn things to the ground. He's actually doing things he thinks make sense. And sometimes that overlaps with the populist progressive left. The Democrats, on the other hand, the establishment cronies, they don't actually care about any of this. These people are ridiculously wealthy. They don't care, which is funny. Trump's a billionaire, but I genuinely believe that Trump, it's almost like Dr. Doom. You ever read the Marvel comics? I haven't read a ton of the comics, but like Dr. Doom he's a villain, right? But he genuinely believes he's going to save humanity. And so there's kind of something like that with Trump. No, I'm not calling Trump a supervillain. I'm just saying that, Trump knows he has to do certain things. He has to do some things that are hard, that will make people dislike him. But he thinks, I don't want to say that, he's necessarily right, because I don't know either. But he feels in his heart of hearts, this is what must be done to make the country better. I genuinely believe Trump wants to make the country better. Now, I do think he's got an ego. I do think he's arrogant. Oh, you better believe it. I think he's a bit of a narcissist for sure. But I do think that he's driven by, he's motivated because he knows in his heart of hearts, I can do this. I can fix this. I really can make this country better. That means when you're motivated by these things, he's actually going to say, yeah, we need a stimulus. We need this, this kind of UBI, emergency, whatever you want to call it, emergency income. I do think it's more fair to say it's not a UBI, it's an emergency stimulus, but you get the point. Now we can see, what is this? Wow, who started this hashtag, the Russians? Look at these people. The people desperate to defend Schumer or Pelosi by any means necessary, posting pictures of Vladimir Putin. I'm just going to read you some of these tweets. People versus Schumer. I love when Dems expose their craven neoliberalism right out in the open. Makes it so much easier for people to see this is how they've always been. So who's running for Chucky's seat? I'd like to amplify them if they aren't corporate themselves. People versus Schumer. I never thought that I'd see Democrats push back on giving money to the American people. They don't actually want to fix the problem. They just want to tell you they are going to fix problems. Trump is being a leader. What? This is incredible. I love it. What a crazy life. Bernie's NRA donations. Dear People versus Pelosi and People versus Schumer, a stimulus check isn't even remotely in the same universe as UBI. They want to means test because people like myself that are salaried, WFH, don't need it, but there's plenty of unemployed that do. Please learn how this works. There are still pro-Schumer, pro-Pelosi people who are pushing back on the progressives. I just love that what we're really seeing exposed here is the progressive versus not the progressive. It's the populist wing versus the corporatist wing. Cut the check, someone says. You can see all of this stuff. Get your head out of your butts and look around. I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, these two hashtags are primarily about getting, pointing out that Pelosi and Schumer are on the wrong side of this one. So I think I've hit the nail on the head with what they're planning to do with this $1 trillion package. I don't know necessarily whether it will actually work out. I think we're going to be heading in this direction because if you have Trump and you have progressives on board with this, you can expect it. So I'll tell you what, we'll leave it there. We'll see what happens. This is so right now we're at 2 aid packages signed. The third one is the big one, and it's being held up by the Democrats. So, hey, look, man, if you're a Bernie supporter, if you're a Yang supporter, if you're a progressive, Trump's not the problem here. You got beef, take it up with Schumer and Pelosi. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.